Hey everybody, welcome to the Loop Community webinar for today. Hope you're doing well. My name is Matt McCoy, and I'm with the Loop Community team. We're here in Chicago, Illinois. We're glad that you're with us. We've got 43 people online right now and counting. If you're here watching, go ahead and type in the chat window your name and maybe what church, what city you're from. I'd love to know where everybody is gathered from today. But we've got a bunch of stuff to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And just so you know, you can always rewind. If you want to watch something else that we talked about, you can always rewind in the stream. And you can also watch this later if you need to. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you real quickly what is, for those of you who are brand new, you might be asking yourself, well, what in the world is Loop Community? Loop Community is a website where you can go and download multi-tracks and loops for worship songs. So if you're looking for a specific song, you can go to loopcommunity.com, search for the song, say this is Amazing Grace, and it'll pull up what version you want. You could choose the Phil Wickham version, the Bethel version, Shane and Shane, whatever. So what's really cool is that we have community tracks, and what that means is that there's worship leaders from all over the world who make tracks for worship songs, and you can go to Loop Community and upload them. If you're one of those people that make tracks, upload them to the site, and you can sell your tracks and make money every time they sell. We also sell the original tracks. These are tracks that come straight from record labels and artists. So for those of you who like that, we also have those at Loop Community. What's really awesome is that all of our tracks are pretty affordable. So you can get the full multi-track in our app. We have an app called Prime. And this is a free app that you can use on iPhone and iPad. All the tracks that you want for this app are $10 each. So you search for a song, pay $10, and you get all the multi-tracks in this app. We also have a foot controller you can use, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. And of course, SoundPark, which we will get to that. So if you aren't familiar with Loop Community, you should definitely go to the website, sign up. It's free to join, and then you can just buy whatever tracks you want. And there's a bunch of cool discussions happening in the community section, some cool things in the store, and also we have a ton of free training videos under Learn if you go there. So I see everybody's kind of saying where they're from. Hello, Scott, North Star Church. Hello, Eduardo. Glad you're here. Ryan Hill from Denver, Colorado. Hello. John Friedman. Wow, from the U.S. Air Force in Germany. That's awesome. That's very cool. Thanks for your service. Carlos from Baptist Church Bolivia. Kaylin, Steve Ray, Travis, Pennington, Wade Lodge, Kenny Sexton. Welcome everybody. We're glad you're here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an overview on how to use Ableton Live in your live performance. And Ableton Live, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Ableton Live comes in 3 different versions. There's Intro, Standard, and Suite. Ableton Live runs on Mac and PC, basically the same on both platforms. The difference between Intro, Standard, and Suite you can always find at ableton.com. Right here, here's the difference between the features. For most people, all you're going to need to run tracks is you're going to need Intro, which starts at $99. And if you stick around on the webinar, we're going to give you a promo code where you can get Ableton Live Intro for $49. Actually, it's $49 off. So, which really brings it down to like 49 or so. Intro is really all you'll need to run your tracks. Standard and Suite are for if you're going to get a little bit more advanced. If you're going to start building your own tracks, if you're going to start recording with Live, then you might want to get Standard and Suite because you get more tracks and more scenes. So, but for most people running tracks who just want 4 outs, 4 ins, Intro is all you'll need. So don't write it off right away because, you know, a lot of times people are like, well, I don't want to buy really expensive software, you know, spend $500 on a piece of software. Well, you can actually get into this for $100. And actually today you can get into it for $50 if you wait around for the code. So let me give you an overview. We're gonna fly through this. Of course, if you have any questions at all, type them in the chat window. I'm kind of watching that as I go through this. And if you have any questions at all, type them in the box and I will try to answer them. So Ableton Live has two different views to it. The view you're looking at right now is called Arrangement View, and it looks more like your standard recording software, right? Where you've got tracks, and then you've got a timeline that goes down from left to right. So let me just go and bring in a track here. I'm going to drop in a WAV file, and you can see that I can play this track. It's going down the timeline. I could layer all my tracks, you know, solo, mute, change the volume, pan, over here on the right-hand side. This view is great for if you're gonna be building your own tracks or customizing your tracks. You can also run tracks in this view, which we will cover in another webinar. Maybe even a little bit today I can cover it. But Ableton's awesome because in both views, both this view and the next view, which is called Session View, you can do so much with both views. You can run tracks in both views, you can record in both views, and that's what makes Ableton Live such an awesome piece of software. So the other view is called Session View, and you can get there by hitting the Tab key, or in the top right corner you can hit this little icon right there, and this will take you to Session View. The important thing to know is that the same tracks that exist in this view, but vertically. So for example, if we renamed this track and called it drums, and then we call this one bass, and then go back to the other view, we still have drums and bass, but now they're vertical instead of horizontal. This view, Session View, is made up of tracks, which are these vertical tracks here. Think of these as your instruments. This could be guitar. This one could be keys. But it's also made up of what are called scenes, and those are horizontal rows that go across. So right now I have 8 scenes. Now, for the way we're going to use it today, let's just call scenes songs. So right now I've got 8 songs in my set list. This is like my set list for my performance. So I'm going to delete these. We're going to do 4 songs in our set. If you ever need to add more, you can just right click and go to Insert Scene. You could also go up here to Create Insert Scene, and it gives you another song or scene. So let's go ahead and start bringing in some audio files that we're going to build a set. So the first thing you want to do when you first install Ableton Live is turn off something called Auto Warp Long Samples. If you go to Live and go to Preferences, and then go to Audio, you go to Warp. Down here, there's a feature that says Auto Warp Long Samples. Make sure that this is turned off. Now, you won't ever have to do this again once you do it once. But basically, when we're dragging in our audio files, we don't want it to warp the track without us telling it to. And you'll know what warp is in a few minutes when we talk about that. So let's go ahead and pick our first song. Let's just say our first song is going to be Only King Forever. So I'm going to open up this track. Now, these are tracks that I purchased from Loop Community. You can go to our site. They're about 20 bucks. Some of them are up to about $29. And when you download them, you get a zip file. And in that zip file, you get all of these WAV files. And you get each instrument as its own WAV file. These are what are called stems. It shows you the song title, the song tempo. So the song's at 138. It's in the key of C. And then this says what it is. This is acoustic, bass, click, cues, drums. So my first track, I'm going to rename. I'm going to call this band cues. And this track is where we're going to put all of our band cues. So I'm going to click and drag the WAV file and drop it here. Now let's go ahead and drag in our next one. Instead of making a track, I can just drag and drop. And notice that it creates a track for me. And now I could rename this if I want. If you want to be really organized, you can rename it. And then you could do the next one. Let's bring in the bass. Now, if you don't want to bring them all in one at a time, you can bring them all at once by just holding Shift, select all of these, maybe hold Command and deselect the ones you don't want, and then click and drag. Now, notice it's trying to drop them in vertically. We want them horizontal. So to drop them in horizontal, hold Command, and it'll drop those stems in horizontally. Now, you notice that each one of these clips have a play button on them. Instead of hitting those play buttons, you want to hit the global play button over here. Because watch what happens if I hit the play button on each instrument. Play, 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 play. So they're all going to play, but they're not going to play in time with each other because I hit play at different times. So instead, you want to hit this global play button on the scene itself. So let's right click, let's rename. I'm going to call this Only King Forever. This is our first song. And if I hit this play button, watch, it plays every single clip in the row at the same time.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
You hear the band cues, here comes the drums, here comes the guitar, it's already playing. If you ever want to skip ahead, you can just click and drag on this time. You can always skip ahead by just clicking and dragging up here while it's playing. So anyways, this view, it's like a normal mixer. You've got volume faders, you've got panning knobs, you've got mute buttons, solo buttons, just like any sort of normal mixer. If you want to reset values back to what they were, just click on them and then hit the delete key, and it'll set it back to the default. That's a helpful little tip for you. Let's go ahead and choose our second song. We're going to do This Is Amazing Grace. So this one I have fewer stems for, but let's rename. We'll call this This Is Amazing Grace. And I'm going to go ahead and drag in cues here. And then let's go ahead and just drag in all the tracks. Again, drop, hold command to drop them in horizontally. If you drop them in vertically, this happens. And that's not good because now you can't play them all at the same time. You can only play one audio file per track, per vertical track at a time. So instead of vertically, we want them horizontal. So hold command and drop them in. Let's hit play.
Intro, 2,
and now
3,
all my stems
4.
are playing. All right, let's go ahead and choose one more song. Let's do a song called Found in You. I'm going to rename this, call it Found in You. I'm going to drag the cues in here. And on this one, let's just bring in the ones I want. So I'm just going to hold command and choose what I want. I'm going to do synth, piano, pad, loop, and electric lead. No acoustic, no bass, because I've got acoustic and bass in my band. But I would like to have these stems just to kind of supplement what my band's already doing. So let's hit play. And those tracks are playing. So here's something that's really important. Let's just say that I think that this drum track here is too loud. Well, most people would just think, well, I'm just going to turn it down here like that. And that does solve the problem, right? For that one song. The problem is that this fader is for everything in this column or in this track. So if I turn it down here, that means on this song,
Intro, 2,
this track
3,
is also going to be
4.
quiet because it's all following this fader. So I recommend instead of using these faders or these mute buttons, because these apply to everything in the column. Instead, if you want to turn just one track up or down, double click on the clip, and this brings up the clip overview window, and you'll see a volume fader here. You can turn down or up that individual instrument for that individual song. It's very helpful. If you want to mute one, you can just right click on that single clip and go to deactivate. And now it just mutes that one clip instead of muting everything that's in that column. Okay, so I've got 3 songs on my set. Our 4th song, we don't have any tracks for, but I at least want to click. So I'm going to rename this, and we're going to call it, we're going to do, how about Revelation Song? That's what it's called. Now, if you're anything like me, you want to kind of organize this and color code it all. So you can right click on these clips. If you hold shift, you can select all the clips in the row, and then right click and choose whatever color you want. You can also change the color of the song titles by just right clicking. Hold shift, right click, choose your color. And that kind of just, for me, I feel like it kind of visually cleans it up. It helps it kind of pop a little more, especially if you're on stage and you need to look down at your computer. It's nice to be able to just see the colors right away. and you know exactly what you're looking at. You can kind of tell the difference between the songs. So I've got 4 songs. If you want to reorder the set list, you can just click and drag and drop. So I'm going to move Revelation song up. Let's just say we want to do Found in You first. Just click and drag and move it up to the top. And now that is first. Now you're probably wondering, well, where's our metronome? How are we going to play in time with these tracks? Over in the top left corner of the screen, this is your metronome control center. So I'm going to, this shows, you can tap a tempo in if you just tap it in here. This shows your tempo, and you can turn it up, turn it down by clicking and dragging. You can type one in. You can turn the metronome on and off right here, and this is your time signature. So we're in 4/4, and the tempo is at 145. So let's hit play on this song and see what happens.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so the metronome is not in time with the tracks. And the reason is because the metronome is playing at 145 BPM, but This Is Amazing Grace is at 98 BPM. Again, I know that because the file name, we name all of our files at Loop Community with the tempo. So, because you kind of need to know what tempo a track was recorded at. So the tempo is 98. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on This Is Amazing Grace and go to Edit Launch Tempo. Launch is the same word as play. So I'm basically saying, okay, when I launch or when I play this song, change the tempo to 98. So I typed in 98 and I hit enter, and now I can hit play and watch what happens to the tempo.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
It changed to 98. You can also change the time signature by right clicking, go to Edit Launch Time Signature, and type in whatever signature you want. So let's just say I actually want 2/8. So type in 2/8 and hit play.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Same thing for 6/8, 3/4, whatever. Now the important thing is to make sure that you set tempo and time signature information on all of your songs. So I'm going to go to Found in You, because if you don't, it's going to just keep with whatever you last told it to do. So if I play Found in You, it's still playing at 98. But that's because I didn't tell it to change to 118. So I'm going to right click, go to Edit Launch Tempo, type in 118, and hit enter. You can also change the time signature. Now, if you want a little shortcut, you can do this from the very beginning by just renaming it. So when I'm typing in the song title, I can go to Only King Forever. And then I usually put a semicolon, but you don't have to. Semicolon, 138 BPM. You do have to put the BPM. Semicolon, and then 4/4. Notice that this orange arrow, this arrow became orange. When it's orange, it's telling you that there's tempo information in that scene. So this one, Revelation song, doesn't have any tempo information in it. So it's just gray. Let's go ahead and set Revelation song. We'll set it to 72 BPM at 4/8. Okay, so I've got 4 songs on my set. They all have metronomes.
Intro 2.
The metronome volume is controlled down
4.
here in the bottom right corner. There's a little headphone jack, a little headphone knob. This is your metronome volume. So let's go ahead and talk about audio routing. How do we send the audio out into our sound system? So over in the bottom right corner of the screen, there's a button that says I/O. This stands for in and out. If I click that, it opens up the in and out settings for every single track. It can look a little daunting, but don't worry. It's not scary. The white boxes at the top, we're not going to use these today because these say audio from. If you're recording with Live, then these boxes matter because they tell you where are you pulling in audio from? You know, what microphone input, what guitar input. What we want to look at is audio 2, which is saying where is our audio going? Where is the audio from this track going? So let's break this down. Right now, all of these tracks say they're going to the master. The master fader is over here. This is the master. And over here, it says the master is going out 1 and 2. Now, this is just something you have to learn. I'm using my headphone jack. You can always change the audio output. If you go to Ableton Preferences, go to Audio, and choose Audio Output Device. Right now, I'm using my built-in output, which is my headphone jack. If you have an interface, you could choose your interface. I'm using the output of my headphone jack. 1 is left and 2 is right. Your headphone jack has 2 outputs to it, and that's something a lot of people don't know. They think, well, it only has one, it's only one jack, so it's only one output. But actually, it has 2 outputs. You've got the left-hand side and you have the right-hand side. So right now, all of my audio tracks are saying that they're going to the master. And the master, which is this track over here, is going out 1 and 2. Which means everything's going out left and right of my headphone jack. What I want to do is I'm going to change the where they're going out to. So I'm going to make sure they're all going out to the master, but I'm going to change the master to 2 because I want all my tracks to go out of the right-hand side of my headphone jack. Now my click over here, it goes out of what's called Q out, which is right here. So change this to 1. So now my click is going out output 1, which is left, and my tracks are going out to the master, which is going out 2, which is right of my headphone jack. We also want to change the band cues. The band cues are going to go out to external out and then choose 1. So my cues and my click are both going out 1. My tracks are all going to master, which is going out 2. That's one way you could do it. If you have an interface, then you could choose output 1 for this track, output 2 for this track, output 3, output 4, output 5. There's so many possibilities. If you go to Loop Community and go to Learn, we have a whole section on our site where there's training videos. And one of those diagrams in here shows you how you could route an interface. So you could plug in your interface, and now each track could go out of its own output and then into its own DI. What we're doing right now is we're doing the basic diagram, which I'm coming out of my headphone jack. My tracks are going to the left-hand side, and my clicks are going out to the right. Actually, reverse that. Clicks going out left, tracks are going out right. Again, though, if you want to do that, you just choose external out and then choose your output. So if I had an interface plugged in, I would have a lot more outputs here to choose from. So you probably will be able to hear this if you have stereo speakers or you're using headphones right now, but you'll be able to hear the click is left and the tracks are right.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Okay, I'm going to change it back just for stereo panning, just for the rest of this webinar, but that's how you choose your audio outputs. Let's go and talk about warping. So what happens if you want to change the tempo or the key of tracks? This is really easy to do, and it's better to do manually than have Ableton do it automatically, which is why at the very beginning we turned off warping. So what warping is it's a way of time stretching audio, speeding audio up, slowing audio down, changing the pitch or the key of a track without it losing its quality or its timing. And Ableton does a really, really great job at warping. So to warp a track, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the tempo over here to the original tempo. So we're going to do, let's do This Is Amazing Grace. So I'm going to type in 98. Then I'm going to select one of my tracks. We'll just do one at a time so you can see what actually happens. Let's choose the drum track. Down here, I'm going to zoom in so you can see it, if it lets me. Here we go. When I hit this warp button, what it's going to do is it's going to analyze the audio. So I just hit it, and it adds a marker next to every downbeat. And now that it knows where the downbeats are, it can change the tempo or the key of that song. So let's go ahead and warp all the tracks. I'm going to hold Shift and hit warp. And it warped all of them at once together. Now it's important that you set this tempo first. Otherwise, it's going to warp it wrong, and it's not going to sound good. I can actually show that to you in a second of what not to do. But if you do it right, this is what you should be able to do. I'm going to hit play.
Intro 2, 3,
And now
4.
that it's warped, I can change the tempo to whatever tempo I want while it's playing. and it stays in time with the click, which is pretty cool. Now let's warp something the wrong way. I'm not going to change the tempo up here, and I'm just going to hold these tracks and hit warp. Watch what happens. Well, you can hear pretty quickly right away that it's not in time with the click anymore. And it's because if I click on this track, it says it warped it at 127. This number down here, where it says segment BPM, should say the original tempo of the track. So it should say 118. So I'm just going to hit undo, and we're going to redo this. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to 118. And now go ahead and click, hold shift, and warp. And I just warped all these tracks. If I click on them, you can see they all warped to 118. Let's hit play. And now you can hear it's in time, and I can change the tempo to whatever I want. Once you warp it, you can also change it over here to whatever tempo you want to play it live. So I can go to rename and change this tempo to, let's just say now I want to do it at 125. And now it will always play at 125. Cool. Now let's just say you want to change the key of the track, because maybe you want to transpose it, you want to sing it a little lower. Well, you will notice that if you click on these clips, down in the bottom left corner, there's a transpose knob. I can click that transpose knob and go up,
2, 3, 4.
and I just transpose the whole track. These go up and down half steps. So if I was in the key of C, I'm going to go up 2 half steps. Now I'm in the key of D. So let's go down. Now, you probably don't need to transpose things that are things that are like drums. You only need to transpose things that, you know, like stringed instruments, guitars, bass, synth parts. Otherwise, drums you can just leave the same. Of course, unless those drums have some sort of like specific key or tonal sound to them. So what's really cool with warping, and you can't do that without warping the tracks. That's really important. So if you try to change the tempo or warp track, or if you try to change the tempo or the key without warping, it won't work. Or it won't stay in time with each other at least. So you have to warp. Now, and it's important to, again, make sure that you go to Live, Preferences, go to Record Warp Launch, and turn this off. I also like to change my default warp mode onto Complex, because Complex mode just sounds better. However, with Live 9 Intro, you do not have Complex. You only have beats, tones, texture, and repitch, I think. But with Standard and Suite, you get Complex, and Complex just sounds a lot better. But the other ones work too. Just depends how geeky and nerdy you want to get with this stuff. So that's how you change the key, change the tempo of a track. Let's go ahead and look at if you want to control these tracks. So how do we actually start and stop the tracks in a live performance? Well, let's just say you have the computer backed by your drummer or backed by your keyboard player, and you don't want them to, you know, use your mouse or like use the mouse to like go click on the track to start the next song. What you can do is you can set up key commands. If you click key in the top right corner of the screen, anything that you see on the screen that turned orange can be assigned to a key command. So I could click on Found in You, and then I'm going to press 1 on my computer keyboard. You'll see that it assigned button 1 to Found in You. Let's go to Only King Forever, hit 2. Revelation Song 3, This is Amazing Grace 4. This could be A, B, C, D, whatever you want. Now when I leave key command, if I hit 3, it'll start song 3. If I hit 4, it'll start song 4.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
If I hit 2, it'll start song 2.
Intro 2, 3, 4. Intro 2, 3, 4.
So that's a great way because you can really map anything here that you see that's orange, you can map to a key on your keyboard. Let's say you have an external MIDI device like a Looptimus or a MIDI controller or a Launchpad or any sort of external MIDI device. Now, for this demo, I'm going to show you the Looptimus. Let me go back here. The Looptimus is a foot controller that we designed specifically for people who are using Ableton Live. This pedal is awesome. It fits great on a pedal board. It has hard, tactile foot switches. You can plug this into Ableton Live, and it is plug and play. You don't have to do any sort of programming, nothing. It works. So I've got a Looptimus here in front of me, and you'll see on the Looptimus you've got next and previous and stop, those far right corner buttons. You've got buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 20 pages, so you can use next and previous to go through your songs, 20 different songs. And then each song could have A, B, C, D, E, F. I'm going to keep it simple for this. I'm going to just do song 1, song 2, song 3, song 4, and stop. All you do if you have an external MIDI controller is you go to Live Preferences, go to MIDI, and if you've plugged your controller in, you'll see it listed there in the list here at the bottom. So you'll see my Looptimus is here. I'm going to turn on remote. Let's talk about what these 3 options are. There's track, sync, and remote. Track is if you're going to use your MIDI controller to actually track, like play an instrument. If you're going to record a piano part into Live. If you search YouTube, I've got other videos that talk about how to record and make your own tracks in Ableton Live. That's where we would have track on. Or if you're going to use Looptimus in pad mode, you would use track. Sync is if you're syncing up 2 different MIDI devices, maybe 2 computers together. Remote is if you're going to use your MIDI controller as a remote control, which we're going to do. So I'm going to turn remote on. And now, just like key command, instead of hitting key, I'm going to hit MIDI map. Just like when key and it turned orange, with MIDI it turns blue. Anything that you see that turned blue can be assigned to an external controller. So I'm going to click on my first song and press button 1 on Looptimus. And you can see it assigned that button to that song. Let's go to Only King Forever, button 2, Revelation Song, button 3, This is Amazing Grace, button 4, and our global stop button will be the stop button. If I had more songs, I could go to the next page on my Looptimus and assign more. You've got 20 pages, 6 buttons per page. So that is a great way to do that. I'm going to show you, let's talk about how to, somebody asked a question about running pads in Ableton Live. If you go to Looptimus, if you go to looptimus.com, there's actually a bunch of videos on here that show you how to use the foot controller. If you go to Learn, you can learn how to use it. There's a feature in this called pad mode. Pad mode's really cool because what it does is, let me see if I can find a picture for you of the front of the pedal. Pad mode lets you play piano with your feet in Ableton Live. The next and previous buttons let you choose which key you want. So I would cycle through here and the key would show up on the display. It would say C, D, C sharp. Then you've got buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you're in the key of C and you press 1, it's going to play the 1 chord of the key of C. If you press 4, it'll play the 4 chord in the key of C. All right, so let's go to Live, and here's how you would set up a pad track. This is real simple. First thing we're going to do is go to Live Preferences, turn on Track on the Looptimus, because we're now going to use Looptimus to perform live, right? I'm going to close my Mail and Excel out. I'm going to change the mode on Looptimus to pad mode. And again, if you're interested in this, we have tons of videos online that talk about pad mode. But I'm going to go to Create, Insert MIDI Track, and we're going to call this pad. And now I'm going to find a sound that I want to put onto that track. Over in the left-hand side of the screen, all of this is called Live's file browser. The top section This is where you're going to find sounds for if you're making music in live or recording. This is where you're going to find that stuff. So if you click sounds, you can find, like, let's just say you're looking for a brass sound. You can hear different sounds if you're looking for a pad sound, etc. If you're looking for drums, this is how you can find different drum sounds. Now, this isn't the actual drum loop. It's just giving you a sample of what those sounds sound like. There's audio effects, tons of audio effects, choruses, reverb, delay. You can drag and drop these effects onto any track that you want. So let's just say you wanted to add a delay to the pad track for some reason. You would go down here and drag simple delay on, and here's your delay down here. You can click it to delete it. Down here, this is places, and this is where you can access files on your computer. So you could have a shortcut to your desktop, like I do, and it shows you whatever's on your desktop. Or I have a folder called My Songs, and you can access all of your files quickly. Okay, so anyways, back to, we were doing a pad track. Let's find a pad sound. So I'm going to go to up here, go to sounds, go to pad, and let's go ahead and just find, I think we can do one. Let me see here. I kind of like that. I'm going to just click and drag particle pad onto the pad track. And now make sure that that track is enabled for recording, which I have it set to. And now when I hit 1 on my Looptimus, it's playing the 1 chord of the key of C, and it's holding it. Let me hit button 4, and now it's playing the 4 chord of the key of C. And then the 5. So I'm just hitting these buttons here. Now back to the 1. If I want to change the key, let's go to the key of A. Now I'm in the key of A. You can also change the octave by holding down the next button for a few seconds. It's pretty cool. So this is a great way to kind of just perform a pad underneath your tracks. Now, if you want to switch back to the default mode to launch your tracks, just hold down the stop button, go to default, and start your track. If you want a fast way to switch through your modes, we have a new expander switch that's coming out later this month for $49, and it lets you quickly access different modes. It adds more notes onto the Looptimus pedal. So check it out. If you're interested, honestly, if you're interested more about Looptimus, go to looptimus.com, look at some of the videos we've got on there, and this is a great foot controller for your live performance. It really is easy to use, and it just works with like any sort of music software that accepts MIDI. It works with our app called Prime. So that's another option too. If you're wanting to get into this and you don't really want to get into Ableton Live for some reason, you can get our app. If you go to the App Store, it's a free app, iPhone and iPad. You can make a set list. You can turn instruments up and down. You can jump around different sections. You can change the key and the tempo. It has auto warping in it, so it just works perfectly. It works seamlessly with our pedal, Looptimus. You can plug in Looptimus right into your iPhone or iPad, and it works great. You can build set lists, auto advanced. You can do MIDI mapping. There's all sorts of stuff you can do in here. Also, what's amazing is that with your Loop Community account, you get unlimited uploads, which means you can upload any audio files you want. If you have your own tracks that you make, you can upload them to the website and use the app. So if you're interested in that, check out Prime. It's our app. Let's look at, we've got a question here. Jake asks if you can keep your track going once launched and move into pad mode without stopping the track. Yes, you can if you don't assign the stop button to stop. You could use all access mode for stop button instead. Or you could use the expander switch. There's another question here. about hold on a second. Where'd it go? I was looking at it just a second ago. Setup. We'd love to know how to set up song sections and cue through Looptimus. So let's look at arrangement view real quick. So I'm going to hit the tab key, and this is going to bring me to arrangement view. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this session, and we're going to open up a whole new session. I'm going to save this one just in case we want to come back to it. We'll call it test session view. And let's go to File New. And let's look at arrangement view. There's a lot of cool things you can do in arrangement view. You can build a set list. You can edit your tracks and jump around. Jump around songs, be really spontaneous. You can do that with session view too. That's the really cool thing about live. You can do everything with both views. But let's look at how you maybe would use arrangement view. So I'm going to go to my songs, and let's pull up a song. Let's do This Is Amazing Grace. And I'm going to drag in my cue track here. And then to drag in the others, I'm just going to hold Command and drag them in. You need to hold Command to drop them in vertically this time. And it made a bunch of tracks for me. Let me go and close this. I'm going to hit this little arrow to kind of condense. Eduardo says, how do I set locators in Prime? You will be able to very soon. Gregory says, is there a way to change the default metronome sound? You can if you kind of hack the program a little bit. Just go ahead and Google that one. And there's some blogs that talk about how you can swap out the metronome sound if you want to do that. But I think it's best just to make a MIDI instrument and a MIDI clip with a click that you like and just have that loop. Is MacBook Air powerful enough to use live in our services? Yes. If it's a newer one, for sure. I guess I can't say for sure, but I do know people who run their services on MacBook Air, and they have no problem with it. Is Prime app compatible with the 6S? It is compatible with the 6S. Can you separate the song into sections and repeat it? Yes, you can. Let's do that in a second. Jason asks, comparison of live intro versus Prime. Great question. Ableton Live is just, it's software on your computer, and there's a lot more you can do with it as far as if you're going to get in and edit tracks and customize arrangements and all that kind of thing. But if you're just wanting to run tracks simply, Prime is a great way to get going. If you just want to get your feet wet and get started, Prime is a great way to start. There's a lot you can do in Prime. And more features are coming. But it really is just a matter of preference. Some people only prefer to run things in live performance off of a computer. Or you might want to quickly, edit a track on your computer and then play it from the computer instead of having to upload it into Prime. So it's up to you. I think a benefit of Prime is that warping works perfectly. And it's you don't actually have to do any of the warping. You just change the key really easily, change the tempo really easily. MIDI mapping is easy. One benefit of Ableton Live would be audio outputs. So with Ableton Live Intro, you can have up to 4 audio outputs, which means you could send click to your soundboard. You could send 3 other tracks after that to your soundboard. Live 9 Standard and Suite, you get, I think it's unlimited. You get a lot of them. Let's go to the comparison sheet. You get 256 audio outputs, which is insane. I don't think anybody would need more than that. With Prime, you only get 2 audio outputs because mobile devices, you need to use your headphone jack. Devices for audio output, multiple audio outputs on mobile devices aren't really practical right now. Hopefully that technology will change and we can do more audio outputs on Prime. We get that question a lot. How do I get more audio outputs in Prime? The answer to that is once hardware is developed to do that and in a practical manner. Right now, you can't just plug in an audio interface into your iPhone or iPad and have multiple outputs. Okay, Kenny says, can you do song sections in session view as well? And yes, you can. And also so a lot of people are asking about song sections. So this is good. A lot of questions about song sections. Let's get into that. The answer about song sections in Prime is yes. They are coming right now. That feature is in beta, but all of our songs are being updated to have song sections. So you're going to start seeing that over the next couple weeks. That answers Steve Ray there. Can you do song sections in session view and in arrangement view? Yes. Let's go ahead and start. So in arrangement view, I've got my song. First thing you want to do is you want to set the tempo. So I'm going to go to 98 because that's the tempo of the song. And let's hit play to make sure it's in time.
Intro. 2,
Cool.
3, 4.
Now what you can do in arrangement view is you can hit this little button that says set, and it's going to add a marker or a locator. These locators you can right click on and change the name. So I can rename this to intro. Let's click on this one and hit set and rename this marker to verse. I just know that.
Verse, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Let's go ahead and hit start a marker on this one. I think this is probably chorus.
Verse, 2,
Oh, it's verse.
4.
So let's rename it. This will be verse. This one's got to be chorus. So you want to make all these locators first of all. And we could do the whole song if we wanted, but what's this?
Intro. 2, 3,
This is back to the
4.
intro. All right, and this is another verse.
Verse, 2, 3, 4.
So this is the only little time-consuming part of it. But once you do it,
Chorus.
you've got the whole song mapped out. So once you do the whole song, I'm not going to do the whole song. Let's just say we did. Okay. You can now MIDI map these different sections. If I hit play on this section, it plays that section. What's cool about Ableton Live is it uses quantization, which means that when I tell it to go to the verse, it's going to go to the verse on the next downbeat. So here we go. Ready? I'm going to click the verse, 3, 4, and now there's the verse. Let's go to the chorus. I'm going to click the chorus, and there it goes to the chorus. So that's really cool because with Ableton Live, now you can jump around the song as long as you're playing to the click and stay in time perfectly. Now you can MIDI map these to your controller by going to MIDI and then just map on Looptimus button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, close MIDI mapping mode, and it's not playing. And that's because you also need to set the play button to button 1. So now when I hit play or hit button 1, it's going to hit the play button and it's also going to start marker 1. And then we'll go to marker 2. I changed my bank on accident. As long as you stay in the right bank, you're good. Now, if you want to take these same sections and bring them into session view, which is what someone else also asked, it's harder to make sections in session view. So if you're going to make sections, I bring them to arrangement view and then copy and paste them into session view. So let's go to session view. I'm going to call this first scene intro, and the next one verse, and the next one chorus. Now, I'm just going to highlight the intro like that and do a copy and then paste. Now let's do the verse, highlight the verse section, copy, paste, and do the chorus section, highlight, copy, paste. Whoops, move them up here. And now I can MIDI map these, button 1, button 2, button 3. And I can jump around in session view. Section 2, here's section 3. Now I usually put a blank scene at the very top just to start with the track. So I just call this is Amazing Grace and set the tempo. And let me redo those markers. You can just click on them and hit delete. Another fast way to do it is to over here, highlight all your MIDI mappings and hit delete. Okay. So now I'm going to do button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. Now when I hit button 1, it's not playing anything because there's nothing in this row for it to play. So one way to do that is go to create insert MIDI track, add a blank MIDI clip by double clicking, and now it has something to play. So I've got a click, I could play my intro, and now start the intro, the full band intro. Now, if I had another song, I would put it down here. Now, this is another limitation of Live 9 intro. If you have Live Standard or Suite, you have unlimited scenes. If you have intro, you only get 8 scenes. So if you're doing tracks that are full arrangements, you're probably fine with 8 scenes because you're only using 1 scene per song. But if you're doing sections like this, you're going to need way more scenes. You're going to need, 100 scenes. So that's where you might want to get Live 9, Standard, or Suite. Suite just comes with a lot more plugins for recording. So you probably want to get Standard if that's really your only hang up. Reading a question here from Sarah Hurst. She says, is there any way to make sure that the output volume of all the tracks in the set are the same level? I've had some issues with tracks being different volumes. It's a good question. Let me hit save. I'm going to save this session so we can come back to it if we need to. I'm going to call it arrangement view. And let me go ahead and open up the session view set. Okay, so I've got my session view set. Now she's saying, a lot of these tracks are all different volumes. I think the best way to do it, so I've noticed this where maybe the cues on some songs are quieter. What you can do, there's not just some magic button you can press to make every output level the same. So it's going to take some manual work here. What I like to do is I just click on the band cue, and you can actually visually see if one of them is quieter. So sometimes I've thrown in cues where it's like that. So like on this one, and I see that the cues like this, those look the same, but this one looks way quieter. So then I will just visually boost it back to match the other cue tracks. Now, sometimes you have to do the same for all the tracks. But here's what you can do to make this a little faster, because this happened to me even last Sunday. I always watch the master fader here, especially if you're using your headphone jack. Then I know that I'm sending everything to the master fader because it says I'm sending everything to the master. So I'm going to watch the master fader. I'm going to kind of skip ahead to like the loud part in the song. And I'm looking to see where is the master fader hitting. So I'm a little bit underneath.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Let me go and play the next one. Only King Forever, and let's see how loud this one is. So this one's a lot louder. See how it's like clipping in the red? So I'm going to turn this one down. To turn it down, all I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to select all of the blue tracks for Only King Forever. So they're all selected. And now I'm going to turn them all down together. So I can turn it all the way down.
3.
But I'm going to turn them up so they're not peaking red anymore. And also so they're matching that other song. Like there. So now if I play Found in You, they're both hitting around the same level. Let's check this as Amazing Grace.
3, 4.
This one needs to come down as well. Hold shift and bring it down. There we go. So manually, but you also can go to effects. After this, I would go to effects and maybe throw a limiter on there on the master channel. And now it just it makes sure that nothing goes over 0, or your ceiling is -3 dB, 0.3. But you still need to do a little bit of manual work to get that. But it's not that bad. You just hold shift and turn everything down. All right. I will kind of stay in this chat window. If you guys have any more questions at all, go ahead and bring in the chat your questions. Again, check out loopcommunity.com. It's free to sign up, free to join. If you would like to get Ableton Live 9 intro for half off, which is like $49, Ableton gives us a very special promo code that we can use for these webinars. And if you go to loopcommunity.com and go to the store, and then go to software, you can choose this Ableton Live 9 intro right here. Add this to your cart, and then use the code ABL49. ABL49. And that will give you, I think, $49 off. And this is only good for the next 24 hours. So you need to use that code immediately if you want to get that deal. Then we'll send out serial numbers in the next couple days or so for you to go ahead and get started. But if you want to get started with Ableton Live right now, you can just go to ableton.com, download a free demo. It's a 30-day full version that you can try on your computer. And then when that serial number arrives in your email, you can type it in and you're good to go. So use ABL49. And I'm going to roll some music. And if you guys have any questions at all, I'll be here for the next few minutes. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. Glad to have you part of the community.